So what happens when a government decides to just pull the plug on the internet for an entire generation? Well, in Nepal, it didn't just cause some outrage. It literally sparked a revolution. Today, we're going to break down exactly how a digital ban exploded into a nationwide fight for the country's future.
But before we get into the how and the why, you need to see this number: 72. That's how many people died in these protests. This number tells you right away that the stakes here could not have been higher. This wasn't just some political disagreement, this was a fight for survival.
All right, so how did things get to this point? Here's our roadmap. We'll start with the spark that lit the whole thing up. Then we'll see how online anger turned into massive street protests. We'll look at what the movement was demanding, tally up the wins and the devastating losses, and finally, we'll ask why this revolution feels like it's far from over.
Okay, first up, the spark and the fuel. Because, the decision to ban social media, that wasn't the real cause of the uprising. It was just the final match thrown on a pile of kindling that had been drying for years.
I mean, just look at the disconnect here. On one hand, the government shut down 26 major platforms. We're talking Facebook, Instagram, X, the whole shebang, and said it was all about public safety, to stop fake news and cybercrime. But for Nepal's Gen Z, this was a full-on attack on their freedom of speech, their connections to the world, and for a lot of them, their actual jobs.
But let's be real. This was never just about losing access to TikTok or Instagram. The ban was simply the last straw. This was a generation completely fed up with corruption, with a shocking lack of jobs, and with a political class that just seemed to live in another universe. For them, social media wasn't a distraction, it was a lifeline.
So next, let's look at how all this anger boiled over, from clicks to protests. This is that critical turning point where digital frustration physically spilled out into a nationwide movement that really shook the establishment to its core.
You see, the social media ban was the perfect catalyst. It was this one really clear injustice that brought everyone together. But almost overnight, that single issue became a symbol for everything else that was wrong. And the protests just transformed into this massive movement demanding huge systemic change.
And the government's reaction? Well, it tells you just how serious this got. When you're deploying the army and putting the capital city under curfew, yeah, this is no longer just a protest. This is a full-blown national crisis, and the authorities were scrambling to get a grip.
So that brings us to the big question. What did these protesters actually want? Now we're going to dig into the movement's demands, and you'll see how their goals went from fixing one problem to demanding a complete overhaul of the entire political system.
At first, the ask was pretty straightforward, but as more and more people joined in, the movement's ambitions grew way beyond just getting back online.
Okay, so it started with a simple demand: lift the ban. Easy enough, but it escalated fast. Soon they were calling for accountability, demanding the prime minister resign. Then it grew even bigger: dissolve parliament, hold brand new elections, and get justice for protesters who were hurt. And the final demand, the biggest of all: deep, systemic reform to root out corruption for good.
So, did they get what they wanted? Well, in our next section, Concessions and Consequences, we're going to weigh some of the movement's incredible victories against the unbelievably high price that was paid to get them.
And honestly, the results were stunning. The ban? Lifted. The prime minister and the home minister? They both resigned. They even got an interim government appointed to get ready for new elections. I mean, these were huge political wins. But they came at a truly devastating human cost.
And that's why we have to come back to this number: 72. 72 people killed and hundreds more injured. Behind all the political victories and the headlines, this is the profound tragedy of the movement. Change did come to Nepal, but it came at the highest price imaginable.
Which leads us right into our final section, an unfinished revolution. Because even with a new government and elections on the calendar, the core struggle for a new Nepal, it's really far from over.
The fight has now shifted. It's moved from the streets into the political arena. Protesters have become activists, and their new checklist is crystal clear: get full justice for those who were killed, turn those anti-corruption ideas into actual laws, and make damn sure that the freedoms they fought for, especially online, are protected forever. So what should we be watching for? The interim government officially took over in September 2025. The next big date on the calendar is March 2026. That's when new parliamentary elections are supposed to happen. And that's going to be the first real test of whether this movement can turn all that power from the streets into lasting political change.
And that really leaves us with the one central question, doesn't it? An entire generation found its voice and forced incredible change through pure will and sacrifice. But now, the question is, can that energy be funneled into creating the deep, structural reforms that they've fought and that so many died for? That is the challenge and the great unknown facing Nepal today.